Okay, so we are up to Mishlei Yud Gimel Vav 13:6. First thing, announcement before I forget, I'll try to remember at the end to say this as well. No Mishlei next Monday. So yes, tonight. No on the 25th. And I assume I should be able to do it on the 1st of January. So we'll plan for that. Okay, here we go. Tzedakah Titzor Tam Darech. Varisha to Salif Khatas. Okay, some weird words here. And I think the two terms that you're probably the least familiar with are titzor. So titzor comes from natsar, which means to guard, watch, or keep. I think we had this maybe on a morning Mishlei shiur, and someone was asking what the difference between shamar and natsar is. And we said plain pshat is that there's no difference. They all mean watch, guard, and keep. But I think we said that, Ariel, you tell me if you remember, that I think we might have said that Natsar means like a more intensive type of guarding, if anything.
I think we're saying something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so the BDB says to watch, guard, keep, guard from dangers, preserve, guard with fidelity, keep, observe, guard, keep, secret. Oh, that's the other thing. It can mean to keep secret or keep close or blockaded. Okay, so plain shot, Natsar means to guard, watch, or keep. But if you're going to differentiate, then it can mean either an intensive guarding or it can mean a like keeping safe guarding. Okay, fine. So that is the first word that you will probably not know. And then the second word that you may not know is tisalef, which means to twist, pervert, or overturn. Okay, so given that, who would like to try translating the pasuk?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Righteousness will guard or guards.
Yeah, so let's actually do this. Let's do tzedakah and then translate it as either righteousness or charity. I assume it's gonna be righteousness here because the opposite is the wickedness, but we'll say that anyway. So righteousness will guard, yeah.
A like simple, pure path.
Okay, so Tom is, let's just say a Tom of path. Okay. And Tom we'll have to define. All right, we'll say that for now. I mean, simple is I think that's a common translation. Yeah. Okay, Varisha Tesalif Chatas.
An evil twists a sin. Will twist a sin.
Yeah, we'll what do we say? Twist
or pervert.
Pervert sin. Okay.
Sin,
So that's pretty good. Okay, so let's check out the minimalist mafarshim as we always do. So Mitzudas Tzion says Tasal Hinyana Mu'ukal Umu'ukam. So crooked, twisted, Kamoselef Bogdim Yeshadim, which we did a couple years ago. Okay, fine. So there's that. Sadia Gaon says, so it's weird what Sadia Gaon does. Okay, Sadia Gaon says, so he only modifies the second half. Okay, hold on a second here. Sadia Gaon says on the Risha, so ours says, Risha, wickedness, to Salef, chatas, that wickedness, and then the verb is going on wickedness, that wickedness perverts sin. But Sadia Gaon says, I think that's the way he's saying it, Resha v'hachatas yesalafu, that wickedness and sinfulness will distort. Okay. But wickedness and sinfulness and sin, I guess, will distort. Yeah, Isaiah?
Do you know if it's Sajigon saying wickedness and like a Rasha, like a wicked person?
So I'm pretty sure it's Resha. I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure it's Resha. And I because it would be weird to say that. Yeah, I mean, you could maybe you could say it the other way. Yeah, if I knew Judeo-Arabic, I would confirm, but I don't. Yeah. Noah, if you know Judeo-Arabic and have access to the side you're going, then feel free to check. In fact, I'll can I share the document? It's gonna be too complicated to share the document. Okay, fine, never mind. Okay, but whatever. Okay, so that's Sadigon. All right. The Targum says Tzidkasa Tintor Li'ilin Ditmimin Ba'ar Chasahon. So he says righteousness will guard those who are Tom in their paths. Okay, so I don't know why he changes it to plural. But Rashia and wickedness. Actually, I don't know if Rashia means wickedness or a wicked person. Let me just check. Sorry, I should have checked this earlier. I didn't notice that it was different. Rashia is a wicked man. Okay, so it looks like he does a wicked man. So he says, and a wicked, a wicked man. Now this is a weird thing. Mitaltel bachatohi will be exiled in his sin. Okay. Now I don't know if that's an interpretation or if that's just a different way to translate tasalef. I'm not really sure what tasal, how he gets that from tasalef. Okay. So we got, the Malbim. Okay, and the Malbim gives us a lot. Okay, it's almost bordering on like, do I want to actually read this now? Or is this already in interpretation mode? But I think I'm going to read it just to give us I think it'll give us something to work with that is still a translation. Tam derech shedarchu tamim b'li chasaron. Okay, so Isaiah translated tam as simple, probably from the Haggadah, like the Ben Tam, but this tam is the Mishlei tam, which is tamim, or the Chumash's tam, which means without deficiency. Shatmimus hu hefech hamun. Tmimus is the opposite of blemished. V'ikar tmimus al mishu kavua b'derech hatov. And the essential tmimus, the essence of being blemish free, is someone who's set on a good path. V'hifuchu chatas shu hachesron. And the opposite is chatas, which is a deficiency. Okay, so Malbim is giving us a lot of things here. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to I'm going to actually type this in Hebrew. I apologize for people who are not able to read the Hebrew, but tam equals blemish free. Then he says the main quality of the tam is someone who is established on a good path. Chatas equals deficiency. Okay, then he says utzdaka al mitzvahs shebin anun lamakom kmo shekasu b'kama makomos b'hifucho risha shekoleles gam hamarshia neged hamakom. Okay, so he says tzedakah refers to mitzvos between man and God, and risha, wickedness, equals someone who sins against God. Okay, and selef shema'avis derech hatam hayashar. Selef means he perverts the path of the tam, and yashar uva tamid al hasar min hayosher vatamimus. And this term always refers to deviation from uprightness and blemish freeness. Okay. All right. So again, that kind of borders on interpretations because he's basically giving us all the ingredients to make us do. Okay. ArtScroll says charity. That's interesting. I bet they get that like from Rashi or something like that. So charity will guard he who is upright of way, but evil will corrupt the sinner. Okay. Now this is a move that I saw a lot of the Mefarshim make. They say that since Tam Derech is referring to a person, okay, we'll guard one who is, I'm going to just go ahead and put in the word blemish free here, whose path is, I'll do a compromise, a Tam Darech, which means one whose path is blemish free, okay. So a lot of the Mefarshim say that since Tam Darech is referring to a person, then Chatas refers to an Ish Chatas, a person who is sinful. Okay, so I'll say or a sinner. Okay, yeah. So that's what ArtScroll says. But evil will corrupt the sinner. Rav Hirsch says righteousness guards him that walks in integrity. I think this is a Rav Hirschian translation. They translates Tam as integrity. I'll go ahead and add that here, or with integrity. Okay, this is becoming a complicated translation. Okay, fine. And then Alter says righteousness keeps the blameless. Okay, blameless is kind of like blemish free, but wickedness perverts the offender. So he also takes the route that this is a sinner. Yeah. Did all of them take that? Oh, sorry, I didn't finish reading reverse. Righteousness guards him that walks in integrity, but wickedness by its crooked ways incurs expiation. Okay. Anyone have an idea what he means by expiation and how he gets it from chatas? Anyone know what expiation is?
I thought it means to be forgiven for your sin.
Yes, it does. It means to like cleanse you from your sins. So chet tet aleph can also mean to cleanse, like, or to remove, like v'chita es habayis. Okay. I'm not even going to write that up here. We'll just keep Rav Hirsch on his own track here. Okay, so let's just go like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these minimalist translations in the chat, because I don't think we should eliminate any of them because they're all very different. Okay, so let's first get the 5. Okay, then we'll get the Malbim. Okay. Oh, didn't mix whatever, mess up the alignment, whatever. Okay, so now we have our translation. Okay, so let's just read it one more time. Tzedakah titzor tam darech. Tzedakah, righteousness or charity, will guard a tam darech, one whose path is blemish free, or a person with integrity. Varisha, but evil, will twist, distort, pervert sin or a sinner. Okay, a lot of stuff flying around here. Yeah, Isaiah.
Okay, so forgetting some of the translations that we had.
We have to do that, yes.
How could evil twist or pervert sin? It's
Okay.
already sin is already twisted or
Okay,
perverted.
good. So how can evil pervert pervert sin or a sinner if it or he is already perverted? Yeah. Okay. And in other words, even if you say that it's going to make him worse, we have to define how. Yeah, Rivki.
Yeah, also I know that like it's not the only pasuk that does this, but I'm wondering, like, it almost seems like it's saying that tzedakah and like the evil are the two things that are like the main, I guess, not like people, but they're the driving forces, as opposed to saying that the people are doing those things which then cause something. So why?
Okay, right. Yeah, that's a good question. So why is this phrased as the subjects being tzedakah and evil? Sorry. And evil. Like, why describe these things as acting on people rather than people doing these things? I think that's clearest if you say that it is it's talking about sinner. Yeah. Okay, next is my dad.
Is the first half of this pasuk actually true, that tzedakah will guard
Okay.
someone?
Good question. So let's break that into 2 questions. What does it mean that tzedakah guards a tam darech? And then is that actually true? Okay, so I guess what does it mean? And I'll say like how and from what? Yeah. Okay, Mark.
Could I ask an alternative translation for titzor from like the root of tsar from arrow?
I don't think so.
What?
I don't think that is the translation here, and I didn't see anyone who translated it that way. I think everyone says it's from Natsar.
Okay, because I just think it's, in distinction to, it's like a winding, twisty road.
Uh-huh. That would be nice. Yeah, I can't explain why. I don't know enough about the Hebrew, but it does seem that no one translates it that way. So I'm going to assume that that's like a grammatical thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We're up to Rivki.
Yeah, sorry, can you just go back? Yeah. My question was on Tom Derech, that I just personally haven't heard Mishlei use that, I guess, character, and why, like, my guess would have been like tzedakah would be related to like a tzaddik or a different character.
Okay.
So what?
Okay, good. So what is the definition of a Tom Darech? And how, like, I guess, like, how is this different? So we have seen, I think, in chapter 11 a lot. Let's just double check. Chapter 11, we've seen the Tom a lot. Tom. Yeah, we've seen the Tamim, the people who are Tom. Tamimid. Oh, we have seen Tamimid Derech, apparently. Okay, but just not familiarly. Do we see them in chapter 12? Tom. Nope. All right, yeah. So I guess the question is, what is a Tom Derech? And then I guess how is this different from a regular Tom? And then how, I guess, what role does tzedakah play in the life or personality of the Tom, as opposed to the life of a tzaddik, right? Tzaddik is someone who's defined by tzedakah. So what relationship does tzedakah have for the Tom? Yeah, Isaiah?
So the Tom Derek and also the Chote, if you say the second half is talking about a person. So those two people are like, how are they related to Mishlei? Like, this is like they sound like people who don't sin, and sinning is not, I mean, like Mishlei is usually practical and not so much about your relationship to Hashem. So that doesn't really seem to fit. Like, how's it going to fall into like practical advice?
Okay, so I will put down the question of, I'm going to extract like 70% of that as valid questions, and then the other one I'm going to try to say why it's not a valid question. Okay. So the one question is, what is the if chatas refers to a sinner, then what is the definition of a sinner in this context? Okay. And then the other question that you had in there, which was good, is, I guess, what is the subject of this pasuk, such that Tam, Darech, and Chatas are opposites? And then what is the practical application? Okay, so those were all three good questions that were in what you said. The question that I think is based on an erroneous premise is, and you're not the only one who's asked this question. I think a lot of people ask this question, that the question was, if Mishlei is about decision making and not your relationship with Hashem, then what is this? Why is it talking about sinners? The point, the truth is that Mishlei is about your decision making and your relationship with Hashem, and there are lots of pesukim that have to do with your relationship with Hashem. I think the reason why, we've seen a lot of pesukim. Let's actually just do a quick count here. Not necessarily in terms of relationship with Hashem, but I'm just curious. How many pesukim have we seen in the last 3.5 years that mention Hashem? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we've seen 6, which is not a whole ton. But if you look at Hashem in Mishlei, let's just see here. I think I'm not going to show the whole thing, but 87 times, okay? But I think the majority of them are in the earlier chapters. Like, you see a lot of them here in the earlier chapters. So I think it's just that the Mishlei that we do, because it's about particulars, is not often talking about your overall relationship with Hashem. But a lot of Mishlei in the first 9 chapters has to do with your relationship with Hashem, and that is part of decision making. So that's a part of your question that, unless I misunderstood, then I'm not incorporating that into the other 3 questions you asked. Yeah, Ayala?
Right, so what is tzedakah and risha specifically in this context?
Okay, good. So what? Just a second here. Okay, what is the definition of tzedakah in this context? And then likewise, in the second half, actually, I'll say both. The way you said it. What are the definitions of tzedakah and wickedness in this context? Yeah. Do you say something else also? Or was that no? Okay. Isaiah?
David has a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Whoa, stuff it at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one is on question number 6 now. Why tzedakah versus other good deeds or other good things? Why specifically tzedakah?
Okay, right. And why tzedakah as opposed to other good qualities? Yeah.
And then also, why is it tzedakah preserves this? Not is it only preserving but not also establishing one as this?
Okay, so yeah, let me think how to put that. What would be the most fruitful way to ask that question? Because we already have the question of what does it mean that that tzedakah guards a tam darech? See, okay, you know the kind of question I don't like, which I'm not saying that you're necessarily asking, but if you're asking the question of why doesn't the pasuk tell us a different point, then I wouldn't like that. So are you? So what are you asking then?
I'm asking, is tzedakah specifically only preserving but not doing more? I think that oftentimes something that preserves something will also establish a person on that same exact path. But here it seems like it's specifying only preservation, but maybe not starting off.
Yeah, that is a different question. So, what does it mean that tzedakah guards the tam derech? How and from what? Okay, so I think this should be a different question, which is maybe this actually goes in our question about about sex. Yeah, so does this imply that tzedakah only preserves and doesn't establish a tam darech? Okay, yeah. Next, my dad.
It's a definition question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a sin and a perverted sin? What does a sin have to become in order to be considered distorted, twisted, or
okay, right? So what? So let's put that before this question, which is actually I'll put it afterwards. What is the difference between the sin or sinner before and after being perverted by evil? Yeah. Stephanie?
So why does it only guard a tam darech? So if anyone does righteousness or charity, why does it only guard someone who already does something good? Because usually if there's something positive you do, you get a positive outcome. But now this positive outcome is only for a specific person that needs to have the qualifications already. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to broaden that question slightly. That is a good question, but I'm going to broaden it, which is I guess, is this pasuk saying that tzedakah only has this effect on a tam darech? If so, why? Right? Meaning, like, wouldn't it have this effect on other people as well? And if not, then why focus on the effect it has on a tam darech? That's a sophisticated question. Okay. Also, I'm happy that I have now answered the question about whether this is the Stephanie that I thought it was.
Oh yeah, I realized I didn't have my last name. It was just a mysterious Stephanie.
Yeah, sometimes there's random people who happen to have names that are in common with people who I know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a Spicer, yeah.
Okay, I think my dad was next.
Oh, no,
Oh, you just didn't put down your hand. Okay. Isaiah?
Two questions.
Yeah.
First one is a minor question of, is there anything specific about the future tense that is important?
Okay, that is a valid minor question. Is there can we infer anything from the use of the future tense in both halves? Yeah. Okay.
And then the other question is actually Stephanie's question, like, could we ask that also with regards to the Risha?
Right. Yeah, that's an even stronger question, right? Is that you would think that evil perverts many people, right? Right. Okay, so likewise, does evil only have this perverting effect on a sin or sinner? doesn't it have this effect on everyone? Yeah, Stephanie?
Also, why is the word guard used? Like guarding from
Yeah.
what?
All right,
And
so
what's the opposite between guard and like distort?
right. Okay, so that's good. So we asked guarding from, or how does it guard him, but we didn't ask what does, I realize I have a typo here. We didn't ask what specifically does the word titzor mean. How is this guarding different from like shamar guarding? And then we have how does it do it? And then the other question you asked, which is I'm gonna just tack that on here. Likewise, how is guarding the opposite of perverting? Yeah. Okay, I feel like, I guess one question that we have not asked, which we usually ask, two questions I can think of. One is, what, if anything, is the scenario here? Right, in other words, is this talking about a specific decision-making case, or is this across the board? And then we also have to ask who the audience is. Who is the audience? Okay. I'm going to copy and paste these questions into the chat. Obviously, if we have more questions, then we can add them later. But I think we have enough to work with. All right, let's see if it makes it. I have a feeling this is not going to make it into the chat. Oh, it did. Good. Okay. Okay. Woo! A lot of stuff. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you some advice here, which is, I think plain pshat actually is sinner. Okay. From what I saw in the Mefarshim, I didn't learn any of the Mefarshim on this, but it seems like that's how they're learning it, that since the first half is a person and the second half is a person. And I also think that we should go with the righteousness. So just to, if you want a simplified translation here, simplified translation, so you don't have to like be looking at all this stuff. So righteousness guards one who a tam darech, one whose path is blemish free, but wickedness will pervert a sinner. Okay, that is a simplified thing. I'll put that. I'll just leave this here. Okay, Isaiah, you have a question or you have an approach already?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how do you approach it when a Mishlei pasuk sounds very, very similar to a different Mamar Chazal, which Mamar Chazal? Because it's
yeah.
I can see what it sounds like to me, unless I shouldn't like
don't say it quite yet. Don't say it quite yet. I'd say just to answer your question methodologically, I would try to push the statement of Chazal out of your mind until you get an intuition strongly like from this pasuk, and then if it ends up being that like you develop an idea from this pasuk and then that it lines up with that statement of Chazal, then great. But you don't want to. I think it's like easier to fall into the trap of projecting something you already know onto this new thing, and then having that cover up the nuances and like stifle your mind, you know? Yeah. So if you can. Isaiah, I mean not Isaiah. Ariel, you have another question or you have an approach?
I have an approach.
Okay, so we'll take our thinking minute first. I just wanted to make sure that we are all set to think. Okay, let's think now. Okay, I have an approach also. Interesting. Okay, Ariel, you're up.
Yeah, it's just a move. Maybe it'll open up other doors, but I was thinking that I think that I don't think it's talking about a tzaddik and the tam derech like as the same person. I think that the individual is a tam derech and the individual in the second half of the pasuk is a sinner, right? I
Right.
just want to differentiate between
Right.
the righteousness versus Tom Derek. Like,
Yeah.
I think that righteousness could, is, the setting or the surrounding
Yeah.
that the Tom Derek is in.
Yeah.
And I think, the chote, the sinner is in an evil in a vicious environment.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
okay. That's actually I was thinking along the same lines. I think I can develop into a full idea.
Yeah, I have some more things to say, but if you
go
want,
go ahead. Yeah.
Right. So
I think it's good.
yeah, I think just to say like maybe like one or two sentences more is that, being surrounded by an environment that's, where either they're most acidic in or it's just like a just system or whatever, like it'll just protect you as an individual as blemish free. Because like normally, like someone who may be blemish free, like it's almost up to chances. Like it's like don't they say if you put like a child who's like a tzaddik like in a base zona, like he'll end up being a chote.
Right.
It's like it's your environment, and the second half of the pasuk, like it's interesting because like, but a chote is a chote, like he, like he's a sinner. So like, what does it mean that like it'll distort him? Like look, you could be a chote, but also not be defined as someone who's a rasha,
right,
or who's a sinner as an individual. But that evil environment will justify or twist you as an individual, and it will only make you double down on your.
Okay, so just to support without saying my idea, but just to support you from the words, can anyone, especially those who attend shall have it, say what the meaning of the other meaning of the short of Tet Aleph is?
Is it sin or miss?
Yeah, it means to miss, right? Miss a target, which is why we say that chet is a shogeg, is an unintentional sin, right? So I think that definitely applies to what you're saying, Ariel, which is that this person is not someone who he's a chote, he's a person who makes mistakes. He's not a person who is evil, like in a Mishlei evil sense. So now the only question that remains, this is a great approach. I'll type it out because this is exactly the same approach I was going to take, but I'll let you make the last move if you want, and if not, then I'll make my move, and then we'll have our pshad here. So this is Ariel and me, which is the subject of this. What would you say the subject of this pasuk is, Ariel?
I don't know.
Okay, I thought you said it pretty well.
No, I mean I know. I just can't think straight right now. I just can't.
That's fine. Anyone want to say what Ariel wants to say that the subject is? Environmental influence on human outcomes. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, right? So I would just state it in binary terms, which is the environmental effects of righteousness and wickedness on the members of the system. Okay, so in other words, the reason why the pasuk is speaking about righteousness in the abstract, okay, as opposed to in the person of a tzaddik, is because we're talking about a system, okay, let's say, for example, a city, that is that like has, I guess, that is defined by its righteousness. So now the question, Ariel, is how exactly is that going to guard a Tom Darach? Like you were describing earlier, but can we get more specific here?
How will it guard him?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess there are multiple ways,
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, there are multiple ways. Like one I could think of is, like if he's constantly surrounded by righteous environments, he'll, that in itself will support him on an internal basis. internally, and the other option could be, like accountability, like the people who are righteous will just, like hold them accountable.
Yeah. So, okay, good. So at the very least, sorry, and if he's supported by tzaddikim, they will at the very least prevent him from backsliding, right? Because in other words, he's already like going to be on a good path, and so they'll prevent him from like backsliding, and probably even help him develop, even though the pasuk doesn't say that. Okay, but this is like the bare minimum. Okay, likewise, sorry. On the other hand, a sinner, okay, i.e., someone who occasionally makes mistakes, okay, will be made worse by a wicked society. Okay, why? A society of, let's say, of Rishaim. I think if we have our Mishlei understanding of Rishaim, then we can understand why.
If he's in an unjust society, then like the mistakes that he does will just be validated by the world without him even thinking twice about it.
Okay, that is definitely true, right? Because his mistakes will not be caught or not be like reprimanded, or corrected.
Yeah, and even and like forget about not being reprimanded; they'll encourage him to do it.
Right.
It's like
they will likely be encouraged, and I'd say C is that Mishleic Rishaim are always looking for people who they can manipulate to serve their interests, right? So they'll corrupt him even more in order to bring about their own goals, right? So, for example, you have lots of people in Nazi Germany who were, people who gave into desires or who gave into fears, but if that happened in a society, like let's say you have someone who like acts aggressively or acts on prejudice, and like does something that's bad to like, it's something anti-Semitic, so like in a normal society, that's not necessarily going to be amplified or harnessed by anyone. But in a Hitlerian society, someone who's actually trying to craft a society around those values, they want those people to harness, to use for their agendas, So yeah. Okay, so I think this is a really good a good pasuk. So this is a very interesting angle because it's showing how so in other words, okay, I think we can fully answer this now. So who is this for, and what's the practical advice? Ariel gets first crack at this, but and then
it's for an individual choosing his neighbors or the environment he's in, and the practical advice.
No, yeah, I mean, I think or a chot, I'm just filling in a chote or somewhere in between, and telling him how important it is to choose his environment. Yeah, I actually just got environment in my high school class. I just got through last week teaching them the Rambam at the beginning of Hilchos Deos chapter 1 for the first, or chapter 6 for the first time, in the context of the Rambam's pesukim about friendship, or commentary about friendship. And I think a lot of like high schoolers who are going into college are in a situation where they could be described as chote, like people who make mistakes or who give into their desires. And so you put them in an environment that encourages that, like in again, I don't know how many, I mean, well, nowadays, a lot of college environments are environments of evil, in certain areas. But it's just gonna exacerbate it, so like you really want to take that into account. Yeah. Okay, good. I think it's a good idea. There's probably more we can say, but that's exactly what I was gonna say, and good teamwork there. Okay, next is Rivki.
Can I add to that one?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't see the thing. Yeah.
That's good. Just another way of like how this can work. I think besides for just them having like an effect on him or them encouraging or discouraging the person's actions, I think just like the society will be like talking in a certain type of language because all their perspectives will be. So like when I was thinking of tzedakah or rishus. I feel like rishus is like a distorted way of viewing the system, such that like you're trying to make yourself the center, or tzedakah is like the true way of viewing the system. And I feel like just being surrounded by people who have that worldview will shape your worldview too.
That's really good also, right? So so additionally, being in a value system around tzedakah will promote thinking and talking about that as a value and vice versa. And this will help. Yeah. I want to give an anecdote also. I know I've said this a lot, and I used to say this a lot in Shalhevet. So pardon me if you've heard this before, but a very stark moment in my realization of this idea was the one summer that I spent in New York. It's the only summer I've spent in New York, and I had to be here for graduate school. And I would take the train up to YU, to Israeli, during the summer, and it's very hot in New York in the summer. And I had just finished my first year of teaching, and there was one day when I was on this train, and there were these like Latina girls who must have been like, I don't know, hard to tell, like 13, 14, 15, and they were very like obviously immodestly dressed. And I was sitting across from them the whole train ride, and they were just talking about all of the sexual like exploits that and like things that they and their peers were involved in, And I was thinking to myself, like, the girls who I am teaching in Jewish schools are this exact same age, and they're they're all human beings, so they have the same desires, but just being in the halachic system, and having like some, just halachos about sex and halachos about tznius and halachos about what you talk about and how you talk about it, it keeps you within a certain baseline framework oriented towards tzedakah, towards righteousness and development. And if you mess up in that case, like obviously there Jews sin, right? But if you sin in an environment that has this like baseline of tzedakah, of righteousness, so it's not going to amplify that. But if you sin in that environment, like, it's just going to amplify things. It's just going to make the trends even stronger, and that was just a big like aha moment about like, the default benefits of the halakhic system, when it's being done. I was going to say when it's being done right, but even if it's being done on a minimal level, Okay, Rivki, you're up.
So I actually wrote down like the second half of what I was thinking was very similar to what Ariel was saying.
Yeah.
I think like where I got the idea was really from like, what does it mean? Because like I think like your dad's question was a good question about how could you like pervert or sinner? Like, what does that mean?
Right.
And I was thinking in a different framework though. I don't think I was thinking from an environmental perspective.
Okay, sure. No, it's good. It's good. It's an approach.
Yeah. So I think more of like I guess like a trait, how would tzedakah and how would evil like affect a person. So I was thinking that with
you're saying it's a trait internal to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
so like how other people are influencing them with their traits of tzedakah and their traits of evil, but how that trait is affecting them. So with that, say for the first half, so I don't exactly know so much about the Tam Darich, but I think that I would say that he's like kind of somewhere in the middle of like, he's not a tzaddik, but he's also not like someone that's starting out on his journey of becoming someone who's like, I guess, living in like the Torah and halachic system. Because it said like his path is blemish free. So I was thinking that like tzedakah is whether, and I think that could be righteousness or charity. I don't have a take on which one it would mean, but that's guarding him because he's already like to a certain extent learning how to have a blemish-free life. And I think that could be from like exactly what you're saying, like that story you just told, that we have values in Judaism that already help us leading that life. And that this is another thing that's guiding him in that journey. And I think that this is like a way of saying like a sliding scale of like, hey, right now this is where he is. And I think like through this, like eventually like he could become a tzaddik. Okay. So that's
I like the approach you're taking. I want to either I'm tweaking what you're saying or this is what you're saying, which is that so you're identifying the Tam Darach as someone who's not a tzaddik and not a rasha. That I like. And then you're saying that tzedakah is not an environmental factor, but it's a quality that he has. I think if you take that literally, then that's going to be a problem, because if he has that quality, then why is he Tam Darach? And if he's a Tam Darach, then how can he have that quality? But I think, so either you have to answer that question, or what you're answering is if Tom Derek is describing his midos, but tzedakah is describing his actions, then you can say that it's something that he possesses that is shaping him, even though he hasn't internalized it yet, and then it would work out.
Yeah, I think that was a part I was a little murky on. Like, I wasn't sure. That's why I was debating in my head of like, how is this affecting him? But I think that that's a really good answer to the question.
Okay, good. So let me just get down that. The Tom Darech is someone who is in between, but is on a good path. And if that person practices tzedakah, then that will preserve and develop him on that path. Whereas a sinner, so now the second half would be, can you just talk out a little bit the second half, even if it's similar to what Ariel and I were saying, but now they're talking about inner quality.
So what I was thinking
actions,
like what I wrote was like that. The first thing I wrote was that the sinner isn't always wicked, and that's why he doesn't use the word rasha. So
right.
What I was thinking is that because the sinner isn't always wicked, if he continues doing wicked acts, and I think you could say it fits into Ariel's idea, because yes, it obviously is easier to fall down that path if you're in an environment like that, but you don't have to be. It really could be coming from your own. Let's say you could be isolated in a house and you can still be, doing wickedness. You be using your time for bad things. You don't need to be corrupted through other people. So I think it's own choices that if he's choosing to not use his time to learn and not use his time to advance himself, and he's like, I don't know, robbing old ladies or like whatever he's doing, then it's obviously not going to be beneficial for him.
Yeah. So I do think that this speaks to a lot of people, that I do think that people are very into labels of, good or bad, without all the nuances of in between. And okay, I'll say another anecdote from the same year is that I had what was it? So I had students from Hafter spending a Shabbos with me. And it was either my first or second year of teaching, I can't remember. And I can't remember what mitzvah it was. There's some like very easy to do mitzvah that like, and I'm not one to push, I'm not one to push halakha on people, but it's one of these things where it was like literally like they just had to say the word yes, and like they'd be yote something, I don't know if it was like me having them in mind or something like that, and I asked them, and one of them said, and they both were not very religious, but and one of them answered by saying like, we're going to hell anyway, it doesn't matter, and it was just this like, this thing where in other areas, like let's say any other area where you're not perfect, like let's say in terms, I don't know, in terms of I'm trying to think of I don't know, like literally any other area where like you're doing something that is not good for you, right? It is so irrational to say, well, I'm already doing something that's not good for me, I might as well just do the thing that's worse for me and makes me worse, But when it comes to halakha, people do that. People say like, oh, I already am sinning, so I might as well just go all the way, And this is saying exactly no. It's saying that if you are a chote, it's human nature to be a chote, right? Like people sin. That's what it means to make a mistake. But if you run with that and you like say, well, I'm already sinning, I might as well like do something evil, that's going to make you much worse and take you out of the definition of being a chote into the definition of being a rasha,
Yeah, what I like about this is I think it's making a distinction between those two people, because it's not saying they're both like people that all of us obviously, even like tzaddikim, have their actions that will affect them. Like a tzaddik can end up becoming someone that isn't a tzaddik, but I think it's really saying like your choices, even the small choices, will matter at the end of the day.
Right. So this is talking to people who are in between and telling them, don't say this act of tzedakah or evil won't fundamentally change me, because if you practice it, it will shape you and remove you from that category for good or for bad. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good idea. I like that. And that really answers our questions as well, and answers the question about why it's not talking about the tzaddik and not talking about the Russia, and also how what do you call it? Yeah, it's good. Okay, yeah. All right. Anyone want to add to this before we go on? Okay. I know we've lost some people. I'm sorry if they were waiting too long. Yeah, Isaiah.
So my idea is kind of
Oh,
exactly.
it's funny. I didn't see that you're doing the it blends right into the books. A little bit. Yeah.
Am I doing something?
That's fine.
Oh.
Yeah. No,
so my idea is kind of exactly the same as Rifki's.
okay.
But I think I can't decide if I'm thinking about it in a way that's different enough to make it a different idea.
Yeah.
So I'm adding on. So that maybe the tzedakah, the way I was thinking of it, is not so much that, or is that like when the person does an act of righteousness, like let's say he does actual tzedakah. So I was thinking of the Tom Derek as like someone who doesn't do doesn't do sins, like they're a person who doesn't have like a negative trait in their path, but they aren't really aware so much of the system. And when they do something like tzedakah, so then it sort of enlightens them to like that there's a greater system that they're working within. And so when they do that, it's sort of like that like reinforces their ability to stay on like a path of not being a sinner. Whereas like when a person who's a chote, who like, they aren't committed to not, to following halakha, let's say, like when they're in that state, so it's not a good thing. But then if they do acts of wickedness that they realize they can maybe like game the system, or they can like work against other people, so then that twists them from just being a stam like person who doesn't care about the system to being someone who like perverts it and goes against it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah. It's almost, I mean, it is very much like Rivki's, but it's also kind of like Ayala's in the sense of like being aware of the greater system and keeping it at the forefront of your mind and letting that guide stuff. Yeah. I have an example of this kind of which I'll share because it's very timely. So I don't know how many of you saw, but I had insomnia last night. So I woke up at I've been having insomnia lately. It's come back. And so I woke up at like 3:30, tossed and turned to like 4:30, and then decided to learn. And then so that was already like, again, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I'm saying like I feel like, at other points in my life, it's very easy if I'm just having a bad morning, whatever, to just say, oh, well, the day's wasted, but instead I decided to learn. And then the learning led to me thinking, okay, well, can I make this into content? Like, can I make this into Torah content? And so then I decided to make an episode of the Stoic Jew podcast, which is always primarily for myself, but I was like, okay, maybe someone else will find this helpful as well. So I put it out there, and, so far one person reached out to me directly and said like, I've been having insomnia problems, and like this really put things into good perspective. And if you check the numbers, I haven't checked the numbers lately since this morning. So it's gotten, I don't know how many people listen to it, 214 views. And then on the podcast, 59. So like the ripple effect of, let's say 5% of the people who viewed it listened to it, it's reinforcing my awareness that there are other people out there who are also struggling with similar ideas and also having a similar system of Torah and using similar tools. And I'm trying to do this for myself and using that tzedakah system to preserve myself, but it's also preserving like preserving the values in other people as well, and keeping the system alive. Yeah. Okay. All right. Whereas if I decided instead I'm having insomnia, I'm going to go rob an old lady, then that would make things worse. Okay. Stephanie, you're up.
Okay, so I was going to add on a while ago to Ariel's idea.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
sorry. So let me. I should have. Yeah, I should have. Since you're not used to the system. So our system is the hand raise is for your own idea, and then if someone else is talking and you want to add to what they say, then you do the party symbol with the. I don't know what you call it. We call it the party symbol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
Go
anyway,
ahead. You can still add to Ariel's idea.
Anyway, the ideas I was thinking was very similar to his.
Yeah.
So, but to differentiate it, instead of your environment, as in the people surrounding you,
Yeah.
having a solid mental environment,
Ooh, okay.
having moral code, and
Yeah.
also introspection into your actions. Because let's say somebody who's sinning, you make a mistake.
Yeah.
And you introspect, and then you see how it affected other people and yourself, and then you're like, that's bad. And then you
Yeah.
can change that. But if you just don't care and you just keep doing what you're doing because it's either pleasurable or it's the easier way, then you're just going to fall into more wickedness. And
Right.
yeah, so
Okay, that's good. That's good. I wonder if that fits in very. Wait, does it fit in with the reverse, or am I imagining this? What did reverse say? No, it didn't. All right, I was mentioning things. Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying that the righteousness and the wickedness, right? That's the thing that you're modifying. The righteousness and the wickedness refer to the state of mind.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
the state of mind and the internal, moral
Introspection,
compass guided by introspection
yeah.
that can recenter you when you slip, and can keep you on from descending further. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, shall we look at some of Farshim? Oh, actually, sorry. Yeah, I didn't see Ariel's hand. Yeah, Ariel.
Hey, can I try a darknesser?
Can you try? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right, I would, I'll try, but maybe you could say that it has to do with learning.
Okay.
I don't know how it applies to a Tom, but whatever. I think maybe internally, actually, never mind. I don't know.
Okay. I
I'm
like
just
where we're going,
shooting in
but,
the dark here. I'm not gonna do it.
okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so let's look at some Mefarshim here. First of all, is David still there?
He just walked.
Okay, because I was gonna guess the statement of Chazal that David was thinking of. I would guess that he's thinking it's Avera Goreres Avera, that one sin leads to another, but I don't know if that's actually what he's thinking of. And I didn't think of that on myself. I saw someone.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was? Okay, yes. Okay, good intuition, David. Because someone who says that, I think the Matsuda, no, Rabinu Yona says it. Rabinu Yona says, tzedaka titzor tam darach hazchus titzurenu min ha'avera. So the merit will guard him from avera. V'lama misof ha'pasuk. This is learned out from the end of the pasuk, where it says v'risha tesal chatas sheha avera goreres avera uschar avera avera. So that's a quote from Pirkei Avos, that one sin will drag you into another or drag along another, and the reward for an avera is another avera. Ratzolam or tisalif ba'aleha, it will corrupt the one who does it until it brings him to sin. So I think this is just spelling out the mechanics here. This fits in most with what Rivki was saying, which is, so what does it mean that the zechus will guard him from avera? I mean, I'm not going to go into my whole zechus and avon shir, but basically, according to the Rambam in Shemona Prakim, zechuyos are your intellectual and ethical perfections. Okay, and when you do tzedakah, Rabinu is not taking a stance on what tzedakah is, but I'm guessing that tzedakah he's saying is like doing mitzvos, because he says the opposite is averos, right? So when you do a mitzvah, it's not just that you're gaining a perfection, it's that the perfection that you gain will build up some form of resistance or shield or immunity against an avera. So let's take an example of this. Like, let's say I'll give you an example. This is an example that someone told me over Shabbos. So I was talking to, I met someone who reads my stuff and listens to my stuff, and I said, how did you come upon my stuff? So he said I have a long bus ride to school, and I used to just listen to sports stuff, and then one of my friends said, why don't you listen to the YBT Machshavah Podcast instead? So he said he started listening to it, and then he burned through them and was looking for more, and then he found like my stuff. But he said that like the more he listened to those things, then the more he became interested in Torah, and the less he became interested in sports. And again, not that sports are bad, but like the just using all of his free time for sports, was not the best use of his time. So what was happening is every step he took with Torah, not only was he gaining that perfection, but it also like that attachment and that lure of the pleasure of Torah like shielded him from wasting his time in something worse, or every time you let's talk about literal tzedakah. Every time you give tzedakah and become aware of the results of like how good the thing is, like what the benefits are, so then you'll think twice about using your money on something frivolous or wasteful or bad, and it'll actually protect you from doing averos, but then the averos is what we were saying, is that if you are already doing something bad and then you do something, and you deliberately choose to like lean into that, it could bring you into more bad stuff or exacerbate the bad stuff or expose you to more bad situations, and then that'll make things even worse. Yeah, Isaiah?
Yeah, okay, so I don't know if you completely covered this while you were giving that example of the guy listening to sports. I remember hearing someone talk about one of the perks about not being able to talk Lashon Hara, just we don't talk gossip in general, is that it kind of pushes us when you're not talking about other people and there's kind of like not so much to talk about. It kind of then does push us to, well, when we have to discuss his ideas, I guess, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
So then we just do wind up, and then that nicely builds on itself because we're not we're not able to involve ourselves in bad things.
Yeah.
And all that's left is good things to be doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a good example of the who's shielding you. Yeah. Okay, good. That's Rabinu Yona. And that fits in very nicely. Okay, next let's just do Matzus David. Let's see. Hatzedaka atma talamid zechus v'titzor es hatam derech zehanos in tzedaka b'tmimus v'lo lihisyaher. So that's where our school is getting charity from. So he says the tzedaka itself will be malamid zechus. It'll like make an argument for the merit of the person. V'titzor es hatam darach, and will guard the person who is tam darach. So who's this? Zeha nosin tzedaka b'tmimus. This is someone who gives tzedaka. I don't know the best way to translate tmimus is like innocently, lowly hisyahir, not to be haughty, right? Not to like make himself great. So in other words, like without any ulterior motives, basically. Virisha and evil, harisha atzma tolich as bal hachatas b'derech me'ukal hikashal ba. The wickedness itself will bring the person who did a sin to a twisted path and make him stumble in it. So the question is, the second half like sounds very much like things we were saying, but the first half, why specifically focusing on tzedakah? And also, what's the subject if you're contrasting the act of tzedakah with like wickedness? Yeah, Isaiah?
Well, it sounds like he's saying very different from how all of us interpreted the pasuk, because he's saying that you'll be guarded from harm, not that it will guard his path, but that you'll be guarded from like a bad thing happening to you by doing the tzedakah.
Are you getting that from the second half?
That's melamed zechus on the guy. It's sort of
right.
Yeah.
So it's melamed zechus on the guy though, but it doesn't say. I mean, it says it'll titzor es hatam dar. It just says it'll protect him, protect the tam dar. It doesn't say what's going to protect him from though. Are you saying melamed zechus is opposed to like the fact that he'll be like convicted?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't. That's how I heard it when we read this. Is that protected from like harm, and it doesn't say it's going to keep him on the path that he's going to.
Right. So it is similar to the Rambam Yona, though, isn't it? That are protecting from Avera, or do you think it's different?
I just don't see that he's mentioning that it's protecting him from Avera. Like he's just saying protect. So to me, if you just say protect, so then it's like protect from harm.
Okay, well, I mean, the reason why I'm saying from Avera is because being Melamed, you're either Melamed Zechus or you're Melamed Chova. Like, this is a judicial analogy, right? So you either are arguing in favor of the guy's vindication or conviction. So I'm making the assumption here that it's saying that, like, this guy who is somehow in some framework on the fence, the tzedakah will, like, say, oh, this is a good guy, means that he's going to be vindicated as opposed to being caught up in wickedness. So I guess it's the absence of him mentioning, anything else other than that. That's what's leading me in that direction. Yeah. Stephanie?
So you were talking about like what it's guarding from. So with like tzedakah specifically, like that mitzvah of just giving.
Yeah.
It in essence is thinking about everything outside of yourself, other people.
Yeah.
And it's guarding from selfishness, and not just selfishness as like a bad quality, but selfishness can cause a person to suffer a lot, because if you're just constantly thinking about yourself and your problems, and everyone has problems, like, and everyone's problems are valid, but if you're only thinking of that and you're only thinking of yourself, you'll never feel fulfilled or happy. So it's kind of guarding you from a very instinctual feeling of like being selfish and wanting to protect yourself.
Okay,
so
it's
that's like guarding you, from
that's very good.
Yourself.
It's very good in itself, but it's very good for the interpretation of the pasuk, because this answers two questions. One is, why are we focusing on the particular act of tzedakah and contrasting it with wickedness? And the other is, why does he emphasize that he's giving it b'tmimus and not to be arrogant? And so I do think that the way you're answering is very good, but I think that the way that you're answering it is essentially what he's saying is, you are doing something that is, like you're saying, breaking you out of the self-centered framework. And the paradigm of that is tzedakah. There could be other things that are like that also, but like the paradigm is tzedakah. And the opposite of of that framework is mishleic wickedness, where you are doing something to build up the self, in some aggrandized way, I think that's a good step. Now the question I have is, I need a clear idea of what the second half is talking about, because I get the wickedness, but what about the sinner? And the sinner, I think you were on the right track there for that as well, is that the sinner is someone who's like giving in momentarily to an instinct, but not necessarily that they are totally wicked. I just am now trying to see the whole picture here, but I like the approach you're taking.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone want to chime in, then feel free.
Yeah, I think maybe working together with what Stephanie was saying.
Yeah.
That I think that someone who's doing an action, I think that like the focus on doing it b'tmimut v'lo lehatir. I think that specifically doing an action for the proper reasons, even if it's a good action, if done for improper reasons, could wind up harming someone. If it's done with the proper reasons and the proper ideas in mind, then that will actually wind up building a person, but the action itself simply won't do that. So
yeah. It's interesting. I don't think he's saying that. Okay. Because I think he's not saying you're doing it for the proper reasons necessarily. He's saying that you're not doing it for this one improper reason, as lihis yaher. He's saying like tamimus. He seems to be taking tamimus more in the sense of like the opposite of like show offiness. Like lihis yaher is definitely like to show off. So like, let's say, for example, the nafkami would be, let's say you're talking about a guy who's giving tzedakah because he thinks it's going to like, protect him, and make him rich or something like that, like that, I think would still be, maybe in this category, at least going to the way that actually, yeah, I mean, it's an open question what the tmimus is. I'm just saying, like, the way I'm reading it is not that tmimus means lishma or for the sake of tzedek, because then he'd be a tzaddik. Like, I think this is a tam darach, like a simple, like Isaiah was saying, like a person who's doing it like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not unpretentious, like without guile. I think guile is the word I'm looking for. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. There's a word for this though. Like you're not doing it. Ugh, it's not unpretentious. It sounds like that though. Yeah.
Okay.
It might be that your idea is good in its own right. I just don't think that's what Matsudas David is saying.
Can you explain again, like what you feel like you're missing from the idea?
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me try writing out the idea, and then we'll find out what I'm missing. Okay, so this is Matsudas David / Stephanie. Okay, which is that there are many problems that stem from being in a selfish, egocentric mentality. Tzedakah, when done bitmimus, okay, which means like not for show, is the paradigm of an activity that breaks you out of the selfish framework, okay, by giving what's yours to someone else, focusing on other people's needs, focusing on the system, focusing on like that God gave you your money, etc. Okay, right. So many ways. Okay, so yeah. In contrast, wickedness is the pinnacle, or is the antithesis. Acting in a manner for your own self-glorification. Yeah. So now my question is, what is the Tam Darech? What does it mean that the tzedakah is malamid zechus on him? And then what does it mean that the Risha takes the sinner onto a corrupted path? Like, I feel like I'm missing the sinner part and I'm missing the malamid zechus part. The malamid zechus part, I mean, it could be exactly what Stephanie said, that it's like, it reinforces like the good non-selfishness, but if possible, I'd like to understand that specific term. I just want to see. Sometimes Matsudas David is paraphrasing Rashi. Let's see what Rashi says. No, Rashi does not say it's about tzedakah. Does anyone else say it's about tzedakah? I don't. Mom's too long. Tunas tzedakah. No. Teach more ish tzedakah tamima. No. I'm not gonna do the mirror right now. Yeah. Yeah, Ayala?
Can you maybe say that, like, because I guess the Tam Darech is someone who doesn't have any blemishes, but is not necessarily perfected, that it's like malamid zechus for him. It's like a vote in the right direction. So like at the moment he's kind of like neutralish, and he needs tzedakah to get him out of his like selfish, like, because he's neutral, he's like whatever,
Right.
but like he needs tzedakah specifically to advance him in the right direction.
Okay, so according to our definition of Tam Darech, then he is neutral. According to the Matsudas David, he seems to be saying Tam Darech is a description of a type of tzedakah giver, that he gives in a derech that is tam, yeah. By the way, this is another perk, by the way, of certain mafarshim. Okay, I won't name names, but I will name some names. I'll say the good names. When you're reading the Rambam, and I'm not saying these are good mafarshim, bad mafarshim, but when you're reading the Rambam, and when you're reading the Sforno, and when you're reading Rashi, those are mafarshim where, like, the word choices are very deliberate, and by really sticking to the words, like, very, very carefully, you can make sure that you're not projecting. Other mafarshim speak much looser, and like there's room for more, So like, because the Matsudas David is, defining Tam Darech as as Tam Darech zeh hanosein tzedakah b'tmimus, So then, like, he's directing us towards that, and the fact that he's using this, I like the first part where he said Ayala, that it's like a vote in his favor of Lam Zechus. Then those are two like critical ideas we need to think about. Yeah, Isaiah.
So I'm not sure if we already said this or not, but maybe the Risha Atma is sort of like the opposite of what we're saying about how tzedakah is like something that shows you that you're part of like a system and there's other people and you're giving up from yourself. So the evil actions are ones that, blind you to that fact and make you think that you're all that matters and like you're, they corrupt your soul in a certain way. So it's the actual action has that negative effect. Just like doing tzedakah and giving money away has that positive effect.
Okay, yeah. So whenever you do an act of wickedness, it like it strengthens the harmful egotistical quality and blinds you to the benefits of focusing on the system. Yeah. Okay, I think we need to work on this some more. I think I just hit my I've woken up at 3:30 and I can't think anymore. So let's just review our what we have here and then we'll call it a night. So, and I realized I didn't write down the Rambam, so I got to do that. So we had our first approach, which was that this is talking about the environmental factors on people who are kind of in the middle, people who on the one hand are on a good derech. You know what? I have a chiddush for this. So Tom Darech and Chatas, I want to say, are the same person. Okay, because Chatas is a mistake. Okay, so the Tom Darech and the Chatas, someone who's on a blemish-free path, meaning if you have imperfections, so then that's a different. Thank you. And that's a different. That might be a different ball game. Okay, but if you are in the middle, let me just see where I put this. I'm just gonna put this afterthought. I'll incorporate it later. Afterthought. Maybe the Tom Darech and the Chatas are the same person. Okay. So in other words, that one person who doesn't have any egregious imperfections, and he's in a system of tzedakah, that will keep him on the right track because it'll promote the good directions that he's going in, and it will cause him to focus on these ideas, and it will help promote the right mindset, and there will be people who support him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas if you are in an environment of Risha, so then no one's going to catch your bad activities and say that this is not good. They might reinforce it. They might use it for their purposes and make you go further into it. So, and obviously this lends itself to a spectrum. So the advice is you should put yourself in an environment that lends itself to tzedakah, and that will put you on a conveyor belt towards the good, or at least prevent you from backsliding. Whereas if you put yourself in an environment where it'll make things worse, then it'll make things worse. Okay, that was not very articulate. All right, Rivki's idea was about the effects of a person's own actions of tzedakah and risha on them. That and this is really similar to Rabinu, so I'm going to tack Rabinu Yona onto here also. So that if you do tzedakah, then that is going to continue developing you on the path of tamimus, of keeping you away from the blemishes and helping you develop further. But if you are a chote, you make a mistake every once in a while. That's normal. But if you engage in wicked actions, that can make you even worse. And Rambam expanded that by saying that good actions will give you zechus, which will protect you from avera, whereas avera goreres avera. Yeah. Okay. And then we had Mitzvah David's idea, which we were working on and we did not finish. Okay. The Meiri does have a derech nister, but it's too long for me to have energy for right now. Okay, so this was a good pasuk. Very I was not sure how we were going to take it at first. It was very difficult to read, but it ended up being a very, very clear idea. So next week, Monday, not planning on having shiur, and the following Monday, which will be the first Monday of 2024, God willing, we will have shiur. So I will confirm that then. Thanks for coming and have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Keep
Good night.
doing tzedakah, everyone.
Thank you.